narrative strategist, narrative, narrative and cultural strategist. And I run a little shop called Fig and Sass. I'm going to have the others on the call introduce themselves because some of you are new here, and we have a really wonderful guest, Mina Hussein, who is like an outrageously intelligent, amazing social media, social strategist person. So she's here today. Mara, do you want to do a quick introduction, and then Mina, and then we'll get started.
Sure. I'm Meredith. Nice to see so many familiar faces as we dig in. It's actually our 5th webinar in this series, I believe, right? Out of our 6. So great to see you all. And yeah, so excited to learn from you today, Mina.
Thank you so much for the lovely introduction, Michaela and Meredith, saying lovely things about me. Hi, everyone. My name is Mina Hussein. I use she, her pronouns. And I am your host for today's webinar, co-host for today's webinar. So I'll be doing a lot of the talking at the front of the room, and Michaela and Meredith will be in the chat, making sure, dropping links and just making sure that I'm answering any questions and providing support. So I'm based on Ohlone land, Oakland, California, and I've been a digital strategist for the past 12 years for nonprofits. And so I'm really excited to share with you all today and have a nice chat. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, great. Meredith or Michaela, do you all want to kind of do this?
Yeah.
Slides. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So this is a 5-part series. This is the 4th of 5. The final one will be on May 16th, next month. For those of you who have already joined us, we started out with communicating the change, which is around setting your sort of change goal and sort of thinking about, communications as a strategy for the work that you do. In February, we did a session on messages that move, so thinking really clearly about the messaging that you share, specifically for your target audiences. Last month, we did a training around working with the media. So we were thinking about traditional media, thinking about earned media. So we did a session on that and some workshops. And then today is digital engagement with Mina, and really getting deep into how and where you reach your audiences through social engagement and digital engagement. And then next month will be power of the story. So we'll kind of bring all of these things together and talk about storytelling. An important thing is that these trainings are separated into sort of 2 different opportunities. One are these 90-minute webinars, like the one that we're doing today with Mina, and then they're followed by 60-minute technical assistance or office hours workshops where you all pre-register and come in and work with us around any questions that you have, or we dive deep into specific elements of the workshop that we talk about today. So just as a reminder, if you are registered for a workshop tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, those are meant to build off of what we talk about today. I think that's it. What's the next thing? Let's see. I think the next is just an overview, right? Where we're going. So I'll pass this off to Mina now, and it will be like this the whole time. We 3 work together all the time, so we kind of jump in with answers and ideas throughout the training, so you can expect that. So Mina, take it away.
Yeah, thank you all. And I see you all continuing to introduce yourselves in the chat. We're taking a peek at that. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. So for today, we are going to just kind of begin with a review of what I call our North Stars, just kind of talking about developing goals and strategy that you all have kind of already gone in depth in with Michaela and Meredith in the last couple trainings. And then we're going to kind of talk about channels, right? TikTok, Instagram, figuring out what's right for your organization, your audience. We're going to talk a little bit about branding and multi-channel marketing, what that is, how you can apply it, and then how to plan and execute content. I just kind of talk about the principles of that. And then we have a couple of activities built in here, which are also resources and docs that we can go more into in office hours that you all can take away and work on your own. And so we're going to do a couple of activities, and then if we have time, talk a little bit about analytics, and then we'll have some space for questions. So this is a pretty large agenda for the time we have today. So we're going to try to get through the majority of it, but Meredith and Michaela will be keeping an eye on time, and we might kind of pivot to some Q&A if we feel like we are running out of time. So yeah, that's what we're doing today. Yeah, so let's get started. And okay, great, it's working. So yeah, sometimes my mouse doesn't like to work, so I have little Zoom geriatric moments, so just bear with me. So okay, great. So let's just review really quickly the principles of strategic communications, right? You want to start with your goal, right? So what do you want to achieve? What is that? You want to think about that also for your digital communications as well, right? We want to start with strategy. What is our goal? What is the thing or things we want to achieve? And remember, again, reminder about the acronym SMART, right? Strategic, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound, right? Set SMART goals, be as specific as possible so that then you can track it back, right? When you are reviewing your year. This is especially important for digital marketing. And then determine your audience, right? So who are the specific groups of people who can achieve your goal, right? Can help you achieve your goal, right? So who are you communicating to? Who are your targets, et cetera, right? So name those folks, and then you want to target your audience. You want to put yourself in their shoes, right? What do they care about? Who influences them? And just all of these questions here that I think are so great, right? What frameworks do they have? Who will they identify with? So yeah, that's how you can get specific about how to achieve your goals. Okay. And I'm just going to take a minute to just talk a bit about what I like to call rapid response. So in the social media realm, right, in the digital realm, we are constantly on a 24-hour news cycle. Things are happening constantly and moving constantly. So, and we live in a pretty crazy time right now as well. So things can always feel like it's a crisis. Things can happen and feel like, oh my God, our organization has to respond. And what I'm saying is take a pause, look at this very friendly, visually helpful map, and ask yourself, is this your crisis, right? Is this your organization's crisis? And then kind of go through this map. How do we fix it, spin it, or change it, right? And if it's not, then let's get back to what we're doing, right? Because we just talked about setting goals in digital marketing and digital communications. And it's really important, if we're constantly getting distracted by the news cycle, for things that don't actually apply to our organization, it's going to be impossible to achieve those goals, right? There are, the digital communication space is vast, right? There's a lot of organizations, there's a lot of social media platforms, there's a lot of audiences. So we have to get as specific as possible so that we are actually reaching our audiences and achieving what we want to achieve online. So yeah. So just a bit about that, and then there are some resources Meredith just dropped in the chat to apply to that. And just so you all know, there is a resource Google Doc list, just like at every webinar in this series, that will have all of these links. So don't feel like you need to capture and open 60,000 tabs right now. You can just be with us here. So jumping in, what channels are right for my organization, right? So why I'm saying channels for your organization, right? Because we're all on a bunch of channels for ourselves, right? So this is a very different question. So what channels are your organizations already on? Please add to this chat, right? So I just kind of started a list, right? You might be on Instagram, you might be on TikTok, Facebook. What else? Is there anything else? You can shout out the ones that you are on already. Yeah, Madison, thank you. Y'all are on LinkedIn, Eventbrite, great. Working on Discord, great. Okay. Twitter, IG, Facebook, YouTube, Slack, Discord as well. Yeah. Awesome. Grindr, interesting. Oh my God, I want to know more. LinkedIn, Facebook. Okay, great. IG, Facebook, wonderful. Thank you all for participating. And hi, Sarah. Great. So someone said, I also want to know about their organization being on Grindr. Yeah, we're all curious. I love it. Just jumping in here. So this is always a really big question, right? Do I need to start a new channel, right? There are so many social media platforms. This slide might look a little overwhelming because it is, right? There's so many social media platforms. And you might have colleagues that are really into social media or are active with their friends or their community on certain platforms. And then they might come to you as the comms person and be like, oh my God, we should start a Discord channel, or we should get on TikTok. All the young folks are on TikTok now. And that's great. It's always great to have ideas and contribute to ideas. And what I want to do is help you all kind of take a professional perspective, ask yourself some questions about whether or not your organization needs space on there, right? And needs to be on there. So you want to ask, like, is there a special purpose this channel could serve for your mission, right? If it doesn't, then skip it, right? So when to join new channels, right? Great. Left out. Okay, we recently pulled out of Twitter. Great. Yeah, it wasn't left out on purpose. I was just putting in a bunch of things. But yes, thank you for sharing. Yeah, Discord. Yeah, Susan, you're not disconnected at all. Discord is a private chat platform. So people will start what's called their own Discord server. So it's essentially like a private, like a private Slack, like a private chat space for a topic area. That folks can join. Yeah, thank you, Meredith, for dropping in the link. So it is more private. It's not like Instagram or Facebook where it's totally public and anyone can join. You'll get it. You get an invite to a Discord channel. So anyway, new channels or social media channels have to be maintained forever, right? I know it sounds like Tuesday, but it is for the duration of your organization's lifespan. So for the length that you're in this job, for the next person, the person after that, right? They have to be maintained forever. That's a big deal, right? So you have to ask yourself, is there capacity to take this on for you, for your team, if you have multiple people, or for your organization, right? Other big question, which is the big strategic communications question, right? Is my audience there, right? If your audience is not there, you do not need to be on this channel, right? I will say that outright, right? So also, do I have the resources and expertise to speak to them effectively? And what I mean by that is, for example, let's say you wanna start a TikTok account. Do you have people on your team with video footage and video editing skills? Do you all have time in your days to create videos and to edit them if you don't have someone with those skills, right? Instagram, for example, is a very visually forward platform. Do you have a photo archive? Do you have a video archive to make reels, right? These are things we have to consider before joining social media channels for our organization, right? Because it's not as simple as I, Mina, start a TikTok and make cute little videos that I think are funny because I want to be a comedian, right? And post to TikTok my funny jokes, right? That's my personal time that I want to take. If I want to take 3 hours to make a TikTok, I can do that, right? But when you're in a workspace, spending 3 hours making a TikTok is a significant amount of time that is being taken away from maybe a press release you have to draft up, maybe an event you have to organize, maybe a meeting you have to put together for your community members, right? So we have to really consider that this is the professional space with social media, while it is very creative and fun, is very time consuming. So yeah. Big question here, when to sunset your social media channels, right? Someone in this chat said that they just sunsetted their Twitter channel, right? For example. So again, reminder, go where your audience is, right? And so sunsetting is just a question I wanted to address because it does come up. And as the landscape is changing for social, and I know y'all's audience skews a lot younger, you may have to make some really key decisions about like, well, maybe we shouldn't be on Facebook anymore. And maybe we need to like invest our time in another platform where our audience has moved over to, right? So important question for this group. So again, go where your audience is, but be intentional about it, right? Really be intentional. Social media platforms change all the time. There's always a new thing. Do not chase the cool new thing, right? Be intentional, take your time, observe, wait and see, right? And so if your target audience isn't there though, you've taken your time, you've observed, it's time to divest, right? How do we divest from a platform, right? You can redetermine your goals for the platform, right? So think about what are the new goals, right? Maybe there's an audience, a separate audience that's there, right? So for example, maybe your funders are on Facebook, or maybe your key volunteers are on Facebook that skew in that age group, right? Then it makes sense to stay on Facebook and maybe post specific things related to that audience there, right? It also makes sense sometimes to stay on for brand awareness, right? So brand awareness, we're going to get into it more, but just to have your brand there, to have your organization name there, it might make sense for that. So maybe it's an idle page on Facebook, right? Or it's infrequently posted to, right? So maybe you check in once a month on it, or check in once every quarter on it and post something as an update, but otherwise it just kind of stays idle and the way it is, right? So just some ideas there. Getting into my unsolicited advice really quickly, right? I kind of already went into this, but the world is constantly changing and evolving, right? It's happening very rapidly. So there's always going to be a new platform or engagement tool to reach your audience on. I've been in this field for a while now. And so it's not about being on top of the next new thing, right? It's about building relationships and meeting your goals. So like, again, I always, when I think about digital communications, digital marketing, there's still these best practices that we always go towards. And that's what we're learning today. And so really just know that things are always changing, but you always want to lean on building relationships and meeting goals, right? Social media platforms are about relationships at the end of the day. So maybe there's other ways you can do that besides social media, right? Maybe you can do that in person. Maybe you do that through other ways, right? So I think of social media as a potential entry point, not an end goal, right? So I'm just showing you here an example of what we call an engagement ladder in the digital marketing space or in the marketing space. We also use this in nonprofits, right? So there are specific entry points that people can come in to become a supporter with you, right? And social media is one of those entry points, right? It's a place where they see you, they see your organization, see your brand, and maybe you get them to join your email list. Maybe you get them to come to a meeting and be a volunteer, right? Or become a mentor or something like that. So just want to name that, right? These are entry points. So just jumping into audience really quickly. So did we launch a Zoom poll or should we skip it, Mayor or Michaela?
I'm going to launch it.
Sweet. Okay, cool. So here we go. What platforms do you think your youth are on, right? So this is your youth, not your organization. What platforms do you think your audience, your youth audience are on? We're going to talk about the youth in particular now for this section, because we know that that's a big audience for this group.
Great. Lots of people are voting. About half of the folks have voted so far. So I'll just give it a few more seconds for folks to share where they think their young people are.
Great. Yeah. Young people sounds way better. Thanks, Meredith. Young people, young folks, the youths.
Okay, great. Last call for votes.
80 out of 80, 100%. 81 out of 81. Oh, okay. I see how it goes.
So about 80% of folks. 3, 2, 1, I'll end and then I can share the results.
Thank you. Okay, beautiful. 82% on Instagram, 90% on TikTok. Okay, so TikTok and Instagram looking like top 2 right now. 35% on YouTube, 46% on Snapchat. Okay, so top 3, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. Great.
Very low for Facebook and Reddit and Twitter.
Yep. Yep. Great. Thank you all so much. Okay, great. So, okay, great. Moving forward. So just some info, right? This kind of aligns, you know, I looked up some research. There's a study from Pew from 2022 about young people on social media, what platforms they're on. So I just pulled some facts for us, just to kind of consider and ground us, right, with this audience. Oh, I spelled that wrong. So Black and Latinx teens, age 13 to, so when we talk about teens, we're talking age group 13 to 17 for this, for all of these facts, right? They're more likely than white teens to say they're online almost constantly, okay? This, you know, as I was kind of reading through, this sometimes has to do with income level, you know, given that parents may always be working all the time, they may not be as engaged in that way. So just something to consider, right? This also means when we say online, we're talking about phones, computers, et cetera, right? Some teens may not have access to computers, so they are going online via their phones, via mobile phones. So teen girls are more likely than boys to use TikTok, Instagram, and Snapchat, right? And teen boys are more likely to use Twitch, Reddit, and YouTube, right? So just something interesting to consider as well, just the gender switch here. Black teens are especially drawn to TikTok compared to other groups, right? So another really interesting fact. So I think this is on the, is this on the next slide? Yes, okay, great. So what platforms youth are on? So this is a little different than the Zoom poll. The study said 95%, roughly 1 in 5 teens are almost constantly on YouTube. 95% of teens are on YouTube. Or have been on YouTube, right? So this is really something important to consider. And then again, the top, this really aligned with the poll perfectly. TikTok, 67%, Instagram, 62%, Snapchat, 59%. And again, this data is from 2022. The landscape's constantly changing, right? So this really aligns with y'all saying like, hey, yeah, most of the young people that we work with, they're on TikTok, Instagram, and Snapchat, right? So, and again, this survey only covered 10 social networks. So there's others, Discord, for example, was not in this study. So again, just want to name that the landscape's always changing. That means the data changes and things might be different for your audience, right? That's a very real thing. Yeah, Michael, thanks for sharing that. The YouTube is interesting because it's all social entertainment as well as learning. It meets a lot of needs. Yeah, it's true. So just want to name, like, your messages must be unique to your audiences, right? So young people, right? I'm talking about messaging being unique to your audiences because young people are social media natives, right? They know when they're being marketed to, they're constantly marketed to. You can see now on social media platforms, we're constantly receiving ads. Excuse me, we're constantly receiving ads. And so I'm just showing these cute little dogs. You can see the professional dog, LinkedIn, with the cute glasses, right? The dog knows what they need to look like on LinkedIn, right? On Instagram, cute little being in the meadow photo with flower crown. They know what they want to look like, you know, what they want to look like on Instagram with their audience, right? And Facebook and Tinder, right? Tinder is just a funny one. But, you know, youth are, and young people are super savvy now, right? They know how they need to present online on social media, right? Via various platforms. Each platform has its own culture, its own language, right? So we also, as messengers or folks putting out messages and speaking to our audiences, need to get savvy with that as well. Yeah, and being effective in messaging there, it's going to be in service of your mission and of your stories that you want to and narratives that you want to get out. So yeah, make sure you get your messages out, make sure they're unique per platform, and make sure that they're repetitive, right? And yes, just a quick plug here. The youth, we know young people are not your only audience, right? There's philanthropy, donors, journalists. This is just a list, parents, educators of potential audiences that you also are probably reaching or trying to reach on social media as well. So just getting really intentional about that. Great. Now just jumping into branding and multi-channel marketing. So let's talk about Beyonce for a second, right? Let's make this fun and real. Beyonce is a brand, right? So why do I say that? Why is Beyonce a brand, right? Beyonce's been, in the celebrity space as a musician and pop star for, going on 20 years. Michael and Meredith, help me out here, 20, right? Or so, yeah, maybe more, maybe longer than that. So what do I think of when I think of Beyonce? I think of her signature blonde hair, right? Aesthetically. I think of music about independence, hyper-femininity, power in your femininity, right? And in being a woman. Just being, I think of songs like from Destiny's Child, right? Bills, Bills, Bills. Being an independent woman. I think of, now when we get to her recent album Renaissance, also about, being a strong, powerful woman as well. So these messages, these are core values about Beyonce, right? This is her brand, right? She might change her style. She might change her style of music, right? I think her latest album was a little bit like, whoa, so different. Everyone was like, oh my God, right? So she might shift in terms of how she dresses, what her music is like over time. But at the end of the day, she is a brand and her core values remain the same, right? So that's what we need to think about for our organizations. What are our core values or core identities that make us a brand for our organization, right? So just some core elements we're going to be discussing of what you want to develop for your organization's brand work are brand guidelines. It can also be known as a style guide in the space, same thing. A voice guide, right? What is your organization's voice? And developing that, right? We talked about Beyonce's voice just now, right? And the core messages, right? And then the messaging guide, right? So core messages, Beyonce's core messages that she puts out. What are your organization's core messages? So personal social media is not professional social media, right? Just two examples of the same issue area being talked about by a friend of mine versus Amnesty International USA, right? So very different calls to action. One, is a toolkit, by an organization of things you can do that don't necessarily involve donating money. Another is a petition from the organization that leads back to their website, right? Very clearly from an organization leading back to your website, capturing your information and capturing your data, because social media is an entry point, right? To action. So just a note there, personal is not professional social media. Finding your organization's voice, right? So we talked about a voice guide, right? These are 4 key areas that I like to think of when I'm developing a brand voice. So what is the character or persona? So think of your organization as a person. It's often helpful to think about it as a person for me. What is that person's character? What are they like? right? So I start to fully try to think about what do they look like? If you want to get really into it, what is their hair like? You can develop a couple different personas for your brand if that's helpful. But what are they like, right? Are they friendly, warm? Are they authoritative, right? What is their tone, right? So when they speak, right, are they super personal? Are they really serious? What is their tone, right? And then the language that they use. Do you use complex language? Fun, whimsical, joyful? What kind of language do you use, right? And then your purpose. What's your purpose? Is it to educate? Is it to entertain? What is your purpose, right? So just thinking about these 4 elements and making some notes, right? A couple of adjective notes. You can do this exercise with a couple folks at your organization or just by yourself, as you want to develop a voice for your brand. And so just thinking about tone, I really like these examples. They're very funny, but thinking about how it applies, right, into messages, right? So let's go with a tone that is personal, honest, and humble. So let's say your organization's tone is personal, honest, and humble. So it's not gonna sound like, we have the best sale in the world, buy now or miss out, right? That doesn't sound very humble to me, right? But it could sound like, we love our dogs, which is why we love the Dog Day sale. Get everything you need for your best friend right here, right? So personal for your best friend, honest, right? We love our Dog Day sale, right? We're not saying it's the best sale in the whole world, right? That's the total opposite. So just an example there's more examples here in these slides. And again, this deck will be shared so you can take a look at it later. But yeah, just thinking about these words, they have meaning, they play into your messages and how you develop messages. So you all have kind of talked about values-based messaging in your messaging workshop. And so just thinking about how to bring, I just want to show some examples from We Make the Future, great organization. And there is a link to this toolkit in here as well. But how to bring values into something as small as an Instagram caption or a tweet, right? We have to kind of we have to take our messages and bring out the core and make them small and short and succinct. And you can do that, and you can lead with your values, right? Like this top one, for example, we are coming together to defend Black lives and build stronger communities for all of us, right? And just moving with core values from the start. So just want to name that like you can bring in that values-based messaging from the messaging workshop, how to develop it and shorten it and make it appropriate for the social media space as well. So multi-channel marketing, that is essentially repeating yourself on all channels. So let's say you launch a social media campaign, you launch it on Instagram, you launch it on TikTok. Make sure it's also the messages are in your headline in your next newsletter, right? Make sure that they're also on the homepage of your website, right? So just being really clear, like this is what companies do, right? You can see, like, let's say Coca-Cola launches a new campaign, like right, every Christmas they have the polar bears drinking the Coca-Cola, right? We all know that. You can hopefully visualize what I'm talking about right now. Then you see it on a bus ad, you see it on a billboard, you see it on a TV commercial, you see it in an Instagram ad. It's just polar bears drinking Coca-Cola, baby polar bears drinking Coca-Cola, even cuter, right? So that is multi-channel marketing, right? It's everywhere, all at once, all at the same time, right? Because what we know from marketing data is it takes someone like, I think it was like 14 times before of seeing something before actually taking the action. So, for companies, that's buying the product, right? Buying Coca-Cola, right? You have to see that. You have to be served it 14 times the ad before you're going to go and be like, I'm going to get some Coca-Cola for Christmas, right? Whereas what we sell are values. We sell, we want folks to take action with us, or we want folks to come together in some way and build community, right? So we've got to be on all platforms letting folks know, come join us, come join us, come join us, right? Or whatever that ask is, take action with us, right? Fill out this petition, donate. So just want to name that. Okay. How to plan and execute on content. I'm just going to take a second to look at the time. Okay, great. We're doing okay. Perfect. Oh my God. Here we go. So what is a content strategy or a content plan? I use those words interchangeably. Content plan might be easier if we're throwing around the word strategy a lot. So the goal of a content plan is to create meaningful, cohesive, engaging, and sustainable content, right? So we're going to get into what I mean by that, and especially cohesive and sustainable are like the words I really want to kind of bring out, right? Because putting out content online and keeping social media moving can be very overwhelming. And so what I'm really trying to do in this section is to create, just to help you kind of organize your brain around the key things you need for a content plan, so you can do it simply and easily and just have it running like a process. So that's really the intention of this, right? So it's not only the words on the page, right? You all have talked about messaging, very important. It is also like that's a very key core ingredient, but the other half of that as well for content planning are images and multimedia that are used, right? That's why we talked about when and why you should join channels, and whether or not you have the visual support for a lot of social media channels these days, right? Because I think we can easily develop messaging, right? In our day-to-day, we can write, but do we have time? Do we have expertise to create images and multimedia as well? So another cute social media explained with a donut, right? We kind of talked about this with the dogs, right? But again, with messaging, right? Facebook, right? I like donuts. Instagram, here's a picture of my donut, right? Food photography, huge on Instagram, right? Twitter, I'm tweeting live to you now while I eat my donut, right? Live from this donut shop. I am eating a donut. Pinterest, here's a donut recipe, right? LinkedIn, my resume skills include donut eating, right? So again, messages, make them unique to the platform. So core elements of a content plan, right? As we get into this. So I'm just going to break them up into 3 areas and go in deeper. So creating content themes and plotting them out in an editorial calendar. Okay, and I'll talk about what I mean by that and show you all in a second. Then building content partnerships. Okay, this is working in community again, because social media is about relationships. And then what I like to call social listening, right? How do we gather content that already exists in the digital space? So what are content themes? Great news is you already have them. You already work on them, right? These are the things you already work on. You might call them your programs, your program areas, or your campaigns or campaign areas, right? These are the issue focuses that you all focus on organizationally. Those are your content themes, right? Because you want to be talking about what you work on in the digital space, right? It's that simple. It's not, you want to translate exactly what you work on. Let's say you put out reports, let's say, whatever. Those are your issue areas, right? And then I want to just talk about using third-party content, right? That's stuff like all of us are on social media. We're all allies, right? So every issue area is probably that you work on is probably already talked about online. There's probably already a space on it, is what I'm trying to say. There's probably already a space for it. There's probably a group of folks that are talking about it already. So it's about joining conversations, right? And a big part of social media isn't just creating content from scratch. It's about sharing the conversation that's already happening, right? So use a lot of third-party content. Like I'm going to talk about this ratio here, the 80-20 or 90-10 ratio. So when I say that, I mean 90% third-party content and 10% original content. Original content is what a graphic that you would create, for example, for your organization and post it, right? Because creating fresh content takes a lot of time. It's very time consuming. And I want to acknowledge that, right? And so you're going to get a better return by also sharing third-party content. We can't just like create something from scratch every single day, right? We have other work to do. So this is the ratio I'm talking about here, okay? So editorial calendars, right? We're gonna kind of jump into this. Yeah, we're gonna jump into an activity here in a second. So editorial calendars, they can look like a few different things, right? They can be like hooks or holidays that are happening in specific months out of the year that apply to your organization, right? They can be birth or death anniversaries for significant people, significant thought leaders. They can be holidays like April Fool's Day. Maybe that's a big holiday for your organization, etc. So it's great to have a list of those things that you can always look at every month as you start to plan content for the month. And then the other piece of it, we're gonna kind of drop into this. Thank you, Meredith. Meredith just dropped in the editorial calendar template. So let's take a pause. I'm gonna get this link on the screen share and just kind of, if you all can open this as well. So you can make a copy. Oh, I see folks are in here, great. You can make a copy of this to get started on your own and make one for your organization. So a distribution timeline, right? And so what you can do is look over your weeks and then see, what am I going to post when and what day? This is going to help you with your multi-channel marketing, right? So like, oh, you're welcome, Cliff, no problem. I'm all about the templates. They're so helpful, right? Just copy paste. So you can see and think about when and where are the messages going out at what point in time in the week to make sure that they're consistent and they're going out at the same time. So yeah, and just to note, I think somebody copied a sheet here. I'm just going to delete it. So you can just copy the whole, just go to file here and just say make a copy, and it'll copy the whole spreadsheet with the 2 tabs for you. And then the production timeline, right? So this is really helpful if you have multiple people contributing and creating content for social media, right? How do we keep track of that? Right? I'm sure we all have some super volunteers or folks in different departments that are curious or interested in contributing to organization social media. So this gives you just a list of like, what are the ideas, who's responsible, and who's drafting and creating that content that needs to go out on a weekly basis, right? So if you have like, a tweet that needs to go out on Thursday or something like that, that, for example, Javier is working on that and we'll have it done and he'll have it posted in time for the Thursday deadline, right? So these are just a helpful way. Everyone thinks differently. You can copy this and make it your own. So I'm just going to give us like a couple minutes to just sit with this. Thanks, Sandy. Yeah, just sit with this, make a copy, get started if you like. And yeah, we'll just take 5 minutes, I think would be great. And yeah, if you need to take a bio break or anything like that, this is a good time for that as well. And we're here. If you want to like talk, shout out any reflections, questions, please feel free.
Yeah, and we know you won't be able to build an editorial calendar in 5 minutes. It's more like as you poke around with it and start to adapt it, what questions or blocks come up for you that we can help you answer so that you can use this tool and adapt it for your needs later.
Exactly. Thank you, Meredith. Whoa.
I think we gotta change permissions. so that it's just viewer? Because otherwise, right, because did it just disappear?
No, it didn't. Is it back now? I just scrolled down again, had a mouse moment.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Susan, I see your question, a recommendation for time of day. This is a great question. It really depends on your audience and where your audience is. That's my answer, my short answer. There's no one specific time that works for everybody. It can do with time zone, it can do with, like 9 to 5 workers will often get online during their lunch break, for example, or after 5 p.m. So it really just depends on your audience. And some social platforms will give you, yeah, that's great, Michaela. Yeah, if you work with students, it might be after school ends. So some social media platforms will give you some information on that. For example, Facebook can show you, in insights your page followers and what time of day they're on, and give you recommendations of what time is best to post. You can use, if you use a social media scheduling tool like Hootsuite, it also has kind of an algorithm that will kind of, you can do this in schedule, or you can say, oh, just schedule it for what you think is the right time when most of your audience is online that you've linked to per platform. So that also, you can do that through Hootsuite as well. But yeah, also just organically put yourself in the shoes of your audience and think about things like, yeah, if they are young people who are in school, maybe they get on social media right after they get home from school. What time is that? Is that 3 p.m.? Is that 5 p.m., right? Do they go to a job afterward, after school? So maybe it's 8 p.m., right? So just put yourself in your audience's shoes. That's kind of the organic way to do that. What else is happening in this chat? Okay, Cerberus is from I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. You're in a smaller organization. Would you recommend we have more social media persons on board before trying to pre-plan our media this way? It seems like a lot for folks who also are wearing several other hats. Okay, if you are the main person, yeah, I would recommend you do this for yourself, right? Especially the distribution timeline for you to kind of keep track of your multi-channel marketing. And then you can use the production timeline tab. You can have your name and just kind of working out when you're getting what information, like who you're getting what information from. If you have colleagues that send you things, like maybe they send you a messaging document or they send you a report that you have to look through, and then when keeping track of what you have outlined and things like that. So it can be for teams, but if it is just you, this is a great way also for you to organize your calendar space as well. Thanks for that question. It's really helpful. Kaylin, Facebook, Instagram, they have analytics on Meta Business. It's very useful. Yes, thank you, Kaylin. Dual post through Meta. Yes, you can have it posted to your Facebook pages automatically. Yeah, you can do that. I honestly don't recommend that because we've talked about how each platform is different and you need to adjust your messaging per platform. So I am not a personal fan of just having things, you know, like you can, even on your personal Instagram, you can kind of link it to your Facebook or other platforms and have it go. I am not a huge fan of that, and I don't do that. So again, you want to make sure your messages are unique to your platform. The young people, as well as millennials, Gen Zers, are very, we're very digital savvy, and we know when the marketing is off. You know, if you've ever been marketed to for a product or seen a message through marketing that really doesn't align with you, I think you know what I'm talking about, where you're like, this is weird, like this feels like the wrong person got this ad, right? So just keep that in mind. Okay, I think our 5 minutes is up. Any other, we've got like a minute, any other like thoughts, reflections, things you want to share? Feel free to unmute, talk out loud, drop it in the chat. Meredith or Michaela, any reflections, thoughts as well? You're welcome.
I see on the template that it has story 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Should we be posting that much per day on any platform?
So that's a great question. Thank you. I couldn't see who you are. What is your name?
Leslie?
Leslie. Thank you, Leslie. Sorry, because I'm on screen share, I only see like 3 people on here. So story 1, 2, 3, you can, we're gonna, you know, I'm gonna show you this other digital campaign timeline. You can think of it as issue 1, 2, 3. So your issue areas, right? That's how I would think about it. Oh, great. You finally popped up on my screen. Hi. So you can think about that as the specific issue areas or program areas that you focus on. And no, you don't have to, like, so you can see at the top here that it says week 1, right? And so it's not that so let's say I'm doing issue area number 1 here, right? These are like, and you would fill this out for all of these. You don't have to in a week talk about all 5 of your issue areas by any means, right? Some people will have campaign phases, right, where they only talk about 1 issue or 2 issues for an entire month or an entire quarter, right? You can, you know, sometimes our stuff is very timely. Like maybe we only talk about a certain issue area around the end of the year because that's when it's the best time to talk about it, right? So yeah, so you don't have to do this for all of it. This is just really like, again, a template for you to fill out and delete the rows you don't need. And yeah, I don't recommend that you, for example, post to Twitter every single day or Instagram every single day. Again, the pace, and we'll talk about this in a second, but your pacing of posting should just be reflective of what you have capacity for. What you have capacity for as individual or your team, if you work in a team.
Thank you.
Just to chime in also, just Leslie, I think the other piece is like if you're working on a legislative session or you have a specific call to action that you know is coming, that would be another way to sort of think about, as Mia's saying, sort of this timeliness. Because if week 4, for example, you have to get out the vote, and I don't know what your work is, but if week 4 you have to get out the vote, then your sort of cadence of messaging is going to be different for that issue, for that, knowing that you're going to have this big call to action in week 4, then you sort of backtrack and figure out what does engagement look like in those weeks preceding to get your audience mobilized to be ready to hear whatever you're going to say in week 4.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michaela. And I just saw a note here from Erica, thank you for bringing this up. Just research studies on negative impacts on social media, negative impacts of social media for young folks, right? This is a big deal, right? Suicide rates are higher than ever for teens and young folks because of the impacts of social media on mental health. So thank you for bringing that in. And your question is if there are any studies that demonstrate campaigns that have resulted in positive behavior changes in public health. I don't know of any myself. If other folks in this group space know of any, please drop them in. But what I will share is, bring that knowledge into how you develop campaigns, right? Oftentimes a lot of impact, you brought in the example of teen girls' mental health. I know a lot of that has to do with body image and images that we receive as women and girls about what we are meant to look like, and just all the airbrushing that happens on social. A lot of that stuff and the filters, a lot of this stuff is just like really fake, but it really affects body image. So just thinking about that, you could bring that knowledge into how you develop content, right? Thinking about, am I representing the body types that am I representing diverse body types in the images that I put out when I create content, right? For photos. If you don't have that, maybe go get some photos, right? Go take some photos, commission someone to take some photos with more diverse body images or images that are representative of your audience, right? Because again, marketing works really well when we see ourselves in the marketing, right? If I see someone who looks like me, who's taking action with that organization, I'm gonna want to join that way more. It's a subliminal message. So just keeping that in mind. I love that you brought that up. Thanks, Erica. So I'm just gonna start the slideshow again. Okay, great. So let's jump into the next element of a content plan. Content partnerships, right? We all have real world partnerships at our organization, right? We have colleagues, we have folks that work on the same things that we do, right? Let's translate those things from the real world into the digital realm, right? This is the best way to build power quickly online, right? Because we want to share each other's audiences. We want to, the more power we have online, the more folks are going to see our content and see our posts, right? So it's important because you do attract and convert similar audiences, right? We all have similar audiences who are interested in this space. And then it also gets you more social reach for a big campaign push. So let's say you have a big campaign push happening, you have a petition, or you are asking folks to donate. But let's say you have a petition that you want shared as far and widely as possible. Building content partnerships allows you to then email your colleagues at that other organization, email that social media manager and say, hey, do you mind posting that? Here's a sample Instagram post. I'd really appreciate it if you did that. And then you do it when they ask it for you back, right? That's how we build partnerships, build power online. It's not a competition, right? We are all colleagues in this space. And we're all trying to, again, reach the same mission and reach the same audiences and ultimately achieve the same goals or similar goals. So I just want to name that super key thing to do. The other thing is what I like to call social listening, right? So social listening is, the research you do online, right? I had just talked about how all the issue areas or program areas you work on are probably already online. There's probably people talking about it online, a space for it in the space. It might be in a hashtag, right? Hashtags are basically what I think of as key points for issue areas and where people talk about them, right? So let's say hashtag, we were just talking about body image, hashtag body image or hashtag mental health, right? That's a hashtag on Instagram. Either one of those are, you can go look at it. You can go see graphics, reels, carousels, all about that, facts or photos or whatever. So it's important to do hashtag research and look at what's happening. That's how you can pull that third-party content and repost it if you want to repost it or share it in your stories, right? Twitter, there's Twitter lists, right? You can create private lists. You can look at thought leaders and check, you can monitor what they are putting out, what they're talking about every single day, every single week, right? Pages, if you're on Facebook, thought leaders, right? Who are thought leaders? They are maybe your executive director. They are maybe a journalist who focuses on foster youth, for example. They are people in the space who talk about the issues you work on. So that's what thought leaders are. So yeah, definitely do the hashtag research. Social listening is where you get and how you get your third-party content, right? And we talked about that 90-10 ratio, 80-20 ratio. Pre-schedule content, right? Plan it in your editorial calendar, right? So this is just a plug. We talked about Hootsuite for a second. That's a great way to pre-schedule content. This is, this is how your life gets easier, right? If you can just block out, 3 hours at a certain time of the week to just pre-plan content, create it and schedule it, then you can move on and focus on other things, right? And consistency is the key, right? The reason why I'm talking about pre-scheduling is so that you can stay consistent on social media. That's how you keep the algorithms happy. That's how you continue to push out content for your audience to see, and will be able to see it, right? Because if you drop off for like 3 months, that's not the end of the world, right? Because we all have things and things happen, but it will mean that when you get back into posting, that less people are going to see your posts. So you have to build that up. You can get that back. You can, if you continue to post consistently, get back into the groove of things, you can get that algorithm moving again and get your post in front of folks, get those impressions in front of folks in their timelines. But that is what happens when we just kind of like drop off and we don't post consistently, right? So just getting into packaging and promoting content. Okay, great. So communications cadence, right? We started to talk about this for a second, right? So what is a communications cadence, right? We want to just think about how many times, this is just I'm going to use this to just kind of walk through a cadence for your communications output, right? What this means is, what is the, it's both a balance of like, what do you have capacity for? Let's say you're an individual that just does all this stuff. You manage a website, you manage email, you manage media relations, and you also do social media as well, right? Just to make this easy. What do you as one person in a 40-hour work week have time for, right? Let's say I have time to update the website once a week, create content and schedule it to Twitter and Instagram maybe 3 times a week. I maybe have time to pitch media outlets once per quarter. And then maybe I have time to send out an email newsletter bi-weekly, right? Maybe that's what works for me. What works for you, and maybe let's say you have multiple people, it's going to be different for everybody, right? Depending on what your communications goals are, right? What is your strategy? Everyone has a different one, right? This may not be the same for you. So map it out for yourself. Get realistic. How often can you post to social? It's not about like the shoulds. I should post every day to Twitter. No, you should not. Your growth is going to be like representative of how frequently you post and how consistently you post. So again, consistency is the most important thing. So if you can consistently post to Twitter once a week, that is fine, if that's what you can manage, right? Because we have to be realistic, and your growth will be commensurate to that as well. So, okay, I'm just seeing a couple questions. So I'm just going to take a pause. Okay, Meredith, thanks for sharing Hootsuite. Yeah, there is a cost. Yeah, if you're just for one person, I think Hootsuite is free, but if you're doing it for teams, yes, there is a cost. Erica, social media campaigns can be so time intensive and it's very difficult to know if it's worth it. Many years ago, I was in a workshop with Berkeley Media Studies. They explained that the Got Milk campaign by the dairy industry did not result in more milk consumption. Everyone knew the campaign, but it didn't change behavior. Yeah, social media campaigns are time intensive, and managing, I just want to add to what you said, managing social media platforms are really time intensive too. That's why we're talking about this stuff in this way right now, right? Let's get really realistic about what we can do in the space and do it effectively. So I appreciate you sharing that. Abby, for Instagram, is that recommendation for regular posts or story posts as well? Again, it's what is going to work for you, right? So this is not I just want to again name that this is not a recommendation for Cadence. I am not telling you to post to your Instagram 2 to 3 times per week. This is an example that I'm sharing for, let's say, one person and their job based on what they think is going to be best for their goals. So again, if you feel like you, Abby, as social media manager, have capacity to, repost 6 stories a day from other organizations or other thought leaders, and then do 1 post per week as a post, that's great, right? Whatever is going to work for you, right? So I just want to name that as well. So I'm just going to talk now, I'm going to get into repackaging content, right? Because again, creating content from scratch is extremely time consuming, right? So let's say you have created a 5-minute video, right? You have a 5-minute video about a program area that you work on. That took a long time to create, right? You probably had a few people interviewed, you hired some video folks, you hired an editor, you created captions, you did a bunch of things, title slides, bunch of things, right? Creating a 5-minute video takes a lot of work hours, right? And contract hours, right? So what can you do? How can you make that last a while and push that content out, right? These are just some ideas that I'm going to share. So on YouTube, I would post the full 5-minute video, right? That works for that type of platform. Great, done. For Twitter, you could create 2 60 to 90 second clips, right? You could have the editor pull out some clips that you could then use for Twitter, some quotes, some key quotes, right? And then you can just write out some tweets for that, get that posted. You could schedule those throughout a week, right? Makes it last longer. Instagram, you can make 3 reels with clips from the footage, right? And those could be the same as TikTok, right? Jumping down to TikTok, you can have the reels and the TikToks be the same. So again, just 3 reels that then you also post to TikTok, right? Or vice versa, however you want to call it, right? That are clips from the footage, right? You can post the full video to IGTV at some point in the week or the month, and then you could cross promote everything on stories, right? Just to push it again, right? So this is how you can take 1 5-minute video and make it last for a month if you want, for 2 weeks if you want, depending on your frequency of posting, right? So just want to share that. Another example, let's say you have 1 written story, right? You have 1 story that's been written, right? You could post a story as a blog on your website, right? That's one way. Then you can, on Twitter, you can write a tweet with a link to the blog post to your website and include a hashtag. You did some hashtag research, some social listening, and you can flunk it right in that conversation, right? You can also create an image, just jumping to Instagram. You can create a graphic, a meme, or a related photo image and write a caption and include the hashtags. Again, hashtags on Instagram are different from Twitter. You got to do that hashtag research, that social listening per platform. Then you can take that same image you created and you can write another tweet for it and then link to the blog post again. Again, written stuff. You want to drive traffic back to your website, right? That's your call to action. Your CTA is what we often call it, right? For short. Going back to Instagram, you can put the link to the blog in your bio. You can make a story post and put the link in there. You can repost it to your stories to get traction, right? You can use Linktree for link in bio, right? And have link trees. And then going to TikTok, you can create a TikTok for the story and post it. So again, TikTok's not going to drive traffic back to your website, right? It stays within TikTok, but you can make a TikTok using some of the quotes to create a script for the TikTok, right? Or key points in the story. And then you can post that TikTok to Reels for Instagram. So again, this is a way you can take one written story, one blog post on your website and make it last for a while and repurpose it.
I'm also seeing a question from Sarah in the chat about whether then you should have all of your staff also personally repost or amplify.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to address that, Meredith. Thank you, Sarah, for that question. So yeah, this is now getting into promotion, right? So I'm talking about content creation, right now, and how to make content last and how to slice and dice your content, right? How to slice the pie. But what you are talking about, which I appreciate, is content promotion, right? And yes, that's a great idea, right? You can, let's say you post a TikTok or Instagram reel. You can then DM that reel to key thought leaders or key staff and ask them to repost it, right? You can, if it's staff, you could send the link via email to the staff list and say, hey, can you all just jump in here and retweet this, for example, if it's a tweet. Yeah, in your Slack channel, whatever. So yes, that's a great point, Sarah. Thank you for naming that. That is promotion as we get into that. So let's just jump into our next activity for a few minutes, which is drafting your own digital campaign plan. Whoa. Sorry, again, geriatric moment. Meredith, do you mind dropping the link to the worksheet? Thank you. And I'm gonna open it. Give me a second, please. Thank you. I'm gonna get it on the screen for us. Oh my goodness. Dual screens, y'all. Sometimes they're just too complicated. Okay. Here we go. Okay, great. So let's just take some time to, I'm going to walk you all through this template. Yes, make a copy if you want to start filling it out. Let me make sure that this is on a view only sharing privilege. Yes, it is. Okay, great. So yes, make a copy for yourselves. This is kind of essentially a cheat sheet of planning, like what I am talking about in all this slide deck today, right? Like in slide form, it can be a lot and it can be overwhelming. Here it is in one Google Doc. It's basically an outline for you to create a digital campaign plan, right? Which is great. And there's a little bit of review here about goals, right? So you can basically fill out your goals here, right? Fill out your goals and objectives here. And then you can list your audiences and platforms they're on in this chart, and also maybe specific calls to action per audience type, right? And you can, again, you might have more than 3 audiences. You might only have one audience for everything, maybe. So you can take this how you will and delete rows or add rows as needed. Then just moving down here, you can find out what moves your audiences using this audience profile template. So again, those are those questions, just going back to the review at the beginning about how do we put ourselves in our audience's shoes, what moves them, right? This is another template, little link that I have provided. You can make a copy of and use. Then getting into your values-based messaging, right? Connection, problem, solution, vision. You all talked about that in the messaging workshop, right? This is, again, the little visual to remind you of that. So create one CPSV message for each of your stories below. So again, story can be like an issue area, right? So create one message for each of them below. Then you can make then you can make a social media toolkit for it, right? And so there's an example of the one from We Make the Future. You can again map it out with the editorial calendar template once you've done the toolkit, right? But this here, just jumping here, so story 1, issue area 1, right? Where does it live, right? Is it if it's a blog post, there might be a URL. Maybe it doesn't have a URL, right? Or maybe it's a YouTube video, that's the URL, right? Just knowing that. Then your promotional concepts, right? Your one for, maybe you have one for Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, right? Again, you don't need to create a promotional concept for each issue area for every platform. These are just examples that I'm putting in here. Like maybe it only makes sense for TikTok and Instagram for the content piece to be cross-promoted. So you can write out your graphic concept or your video concept and your copy. Copy is the written caption. And then you can, maybe there's a link. You can put the link there if there is a link. And then you can just, again, copy and paste this and keep doing it. So again, there's a lot here. Take a minute just to kind of look at this. Take a couple minutes. I'm just keeping a mind on time. We'll do, let's take like just 2 minutes. I'm going to stop us at 10:20. It's 10:18 right now. Just make a copy of this. Again, we can go further into this during office hours. This is not something that you need to digest right now. I just want to expose you to it. Look at this later. We can dive into it for office hours. You can start to kind of chip away, but this will take a while. This is a very in-depth template. And again, you don't have to use all of it. I'm giving you all the options, but you can plug and play as needed. Okay, I'm gonna restart the slide deck. We are running on time today, which is great. So I'm just gonna take a couple of minutes to go over the analytics slides. Again, it'll be a quick overview. We're 10 minutes out from wrapping this up, everybody. So I'm gonna take like 5 minutes. I know, again, this is a lot. We had a big day today. We had a big morning. Thanks for hanging with me, and we are gonna dive deeper in office hours, and I hope we can have a more two-way conversation during office hours. I'm gonna just quickly go over analytics. Anything that's confusing, we can dive deeper into later this week, okay? And then we'll wrap up and have some time for a chat. So analytics. Okay, analytics, I try to keep it as simple as possible, right? What's important for us is just to track our progress, right? Because again, at the top of this deck, top of this call, we talked about setting goals. So we need to be able to track and reach our goals, right? So what I suggest you do is to create simple monthly reports. And these can just be screenshots in a Google Doc, okay? And I'm gonna kind of show you the things that need to go into a simple monthly report in a second here. The other thing I want you to do, make a quick spreadsheet and just create a calendar invite for some time in the month where you record your following days, beginning of the month, end of the month, whatever, 17th of the month, I don't know, whatever works for you, to track your growth monthly so that you can just pull out your growth rate, right, for your platform easily using a formula. So just have a spreadsheet. Again, I think followers are vanity metrics, but funders love to know about followers, right? So we want to just track our growth monthly that way. So simple monthly report, right? Look at the bullets on the side here. This on the left is a screenshot of what your Twitter Insights page looks like with your monthly snapshot. I think Twitter has a really good visually friendly, monthly snapshot. Again, I just want to say, like, a lot of platforms don't have analytics, right? Someone mentioned like business analytics. That's great, right? If you have Instagram and Facebook linked up. I don't know if TikTok has analytics. I don't think it does. I mean, you can see things like your viewers and impressions. So take what you have, right? Take what you have. You want to just think about, what were my top 3 successful posts of the month, given the metrics that I have, right? It could just be that what got the top impressions if I'm on TikTok, right? Or the most views, if it's a reel, and why you think that they were good, right? Your number of new followers, right? Again, we talked about that spreadsheet already. And then any thought leaders, any key ones, right? So like here in the screenshot example, there's like a top mention, right? That's like, or a top follower, right? Those are like good influencer. Twitter is a lot about influencers, top thought leaders. So that's a good like point for that. And then your engagement rate, so that you can create data benchmarks for yourself. What is engagement rate, right? Engagement rate is the number of engagements. Those are your clicks, follows, likes, retweets, divided by the total number of impressions. Impressions are the same thing as what is called reach on Facebook. So reach and impressions, same thing, right? Impressions or reach is how many people got served your content. Like, let's say it's a video, let's say it's a tweet, whatever type of post, written or visual, how many people got served that in their timeline, right? So that's an impression or reach. Your engagement, again, likes, follows, all that. You divide this, you get a percentage, 2.4%. This is how you can create baselines for yourself of like, yeah, my engagement rate for this post, my top engagement rate of the month was 2.4%. What was your top engagement rate or average engagement rate for the quarter? That's a benchmark. Then you can benchmark yourself and try to surpass that average as you create more content for yourself. And you can see what does well. You can think about what does well and why and how. Okay. Measure against yourself over time, right? Create your benchmarks. The best measurement you can do. People always ask me, what is the thing I should be looking for, right? And Meredith, thank you. Meredith just dropped in the benchmark study from M&R. M&R is great for benchmarks overall, but again, they take large organizations and small organizations and take those benchmarks. Your organization size is what matters, right? Your audience is unique to your organization. So again, you want to measure against yourself over time, create your own benchmarks, figure out what your average engagement rate is or what your top engagement rate is, and then try to surpass that and think about why that's happening. Yeah, we can address this in the question, Erica. We can talk about paying for boosts. So let's just jump into, do you mind next steps in closing, Meredith or Michaela, taking that? Like, thanks for being with me today. We're going to jump into questions. We'll wrap up and close. Let's just start with next.
Yeah, just real quickly, I put in the chat and it looks like Gerald just dropped it again. We do have some spots left both tomorrow and Thursday to come to a follow-up workshop, aka office hours. Mina will be with us. And so we can dig in even more to some of your questions and appreciating that folks are saying like they want to go even deeper and there's so much to cover. And then just a reminder that we have one last session in the series. It's on May 16th. And it's the power of stories and storytelling, which kind of cross everything we've talked about, whether you're thinking about digital, thinking about media or messaging, stories play a role in everything we do as communicators. So stay tuned for emails and invites for all that. But yeah, we have time for at least a couple questions.
Great, thank you. And I'm just gonna see what this last slide is. Okay, great. We can drop our emails in the chat. I'm going to just stop the share so that we can look at each other when we talk. How about that? Great. Hi, everyone. Thank you for hanging with us. I know that this was a lot. Thanks for hanging with me here while I flew through this content. We can, again, ground with it more throughout the week if you want to sign up for office hours. Erica asked a question about Yes, and you can email me. Happy to talk. I love meeting folks in the nonprofit space and talking about comms. So, you know, can you address paying for boosts? Is it worth it? We've run some short video PSAs on YouTube for not much cost. That's great. I would love to hear more about whether those video PSAs have worked. Yeah, paying for boosts. Is it worth it? Again, I think it really depends on the type of content you want to boost and whether or not, like, maybe it's a key moment, for example, in your campaign push, and you really want to like push a specific piece of content. Boosting, essentially what it does is, so let's just talk about in context of Facebook boosting for a second. What we know is that, let's say you have a Facebook page and you post to it, and then it suggests you boost it. Anything you post to your Facebook page, less than 1% of your page followers are actually served that post. Okay, less than 1% of your Facebook followers. So very few people that are like, let's say you have 100,000 followers, or let's say you have 20,000 followers. Like 20,000 of those followers aren't going to see every single one of your posts every time. Less than 1% of them will see it. So that's why I say repeat yourself all the time, right? Keep posting multiple times, multiple ways, the same thing over and over again. It's not repetitive to your audience. So I think that that's really important to do it organically in that way, is again, multi-channel repetitiveness in marketing. Boosting means that like more than the less than 1% of your audience will see your post of your page followers. That's what boosting is. So again, I think it's important for you to determine whether or not that's helpful based on your goals. I know that that's a vague answer, but that is the real answer. And again, it's also about budget. Like if it's not like worth it, again, like why I focus on the organic stuff, what we can do for free, is because a lot of times we don't have budget for advertising and digital marketing to pay to play, right? So that's why I am just thinking about this. My approach is in a digital organizing approach, which is just what can we do for free? How do I think about this as an organizer and bring my audiences in and speak to them in that way? Yeah. Anything else? I see thank yous. Thank you all for hanging with us today. Any other questions or things you want to talk about? I can also hang out for a few minutes if that's helpful. Yeah.
Well, I would welcome folks to come off mute just to give a little woo for a little clap for Mina. Mina, thank you so much. It's clear from all the activity and thank yous that folks really appreciate all your brilliance and expertise. So thank you so much for being part of this with us. And thank you to everyone for spending your morning with us. We look forward to seeing many of you in the follow-up sessions this week. And then, yeah, we'll bring it all home in May with our fifth and final part of this webinar series. So appreciate you all. Thank you all for the work you're doing every day. And until next time, we'll see you then.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Great to see you. See you later this week.
Bye, Nina.